Pandora's box is already open, and it cannot be shut. World War III, well, as you know, we're entering into the 4th week. A whole month of this. And Trump's trying to act like he's going, and I kind of thought this, he's going to try to act like he got a quick victory while prepared to send more boots on the ground. So he's flip-flopping on the whole thing. Because no matter what, there is no exit strategy. You know, as they say, exit light, enter night. Well, these people are going into very dark territory, and it's in a war that they cannot win. Shalom, first and foremost, like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadosh, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth and sincerity, and shout out to the Akims out there in the four corners of the earth proclaiming this truth. Braka the Yahweh, Braka the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadosh, Brakatum. So, here it is, World War III. 1 month, going into 1 month now.
Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not quite impressed by this.
And it's very cool.
Oh, there it is.
Isn't that great?
No, it is not great, as of course. We're in a very weird predicament, especially in the Middle East right now, as a lot of people are saying it is almost assured now that we will be sending boots on the ground, as we're declaring how bad Iran is because they spend all of their money on tunnels. As in the same breath, we have the Secretary of War saying, "Can I borrow $200 billion?" Oh my goodness!
Shit, pickle.
If we're not laughing, we're crying because of the situation.
Well, we're laughing, but
we're doing very well.
Yeah, you eat a mice, you're going to pay.
F-35 being shut down, allegedly 100% support this conflict from CNN polls. What the hell's going on here? As we're spending billions already, as $100 million aircraft was just shot, as we were told, yeah, they're totally defeated. As the true numbers of losses, of wounded, of casualties, and hardware hit, still unknown. But guess what? We're sending in a lot more to the region, specifically a large deployment of Marines that soon could be invading Iranian territory. Now, again...
Yep. Mandatory suicide.
We're just going to get into all
massacre on the front lines.
On this particular independent media broadcast. If you appreciate us still being a consistent voice, we don't take money from Qatar, we don't take money from BB, we take money...
An energy-rich country attempting to target our diplomatic facilities. Iran, you know, we're not surprised that they would indiscriminately target, and we're still seeing that. Jerry.
Oh, but you don't indiscriminately shoot at their reserves.
Rich country, could be, should be. Instead, like so many other places driven by radical ideology, they've spent that money instead of investing in their people. That's why you had millions of Iranians protesting, because they felt like their quality of life didn't match what it could be or should be. And what was the Iranian state? There's a reason we call Iran the #1 state sponsor of terrorism, because they took the money they make and they invest it in tunnels, and they invested in missiles, and they invested in launchers and UAVs, and we are destroying and degrading that in historic proportions.
Is he trying to get the people of the United States to protest? As of course, these are the TSA lines at LaGuardia right now, as there's a partial government shutdown. The government can't figure out where to allocate their spending, as of course we're printing money. We're devaluing the purchasing power of your dollar. We're making everything be more expensive or crappier. And it is both in many instances. I mean, this is the insanity that people have to deal with, as we have a broken system that clearly has crumbling infrastructure, while our national debt continues to increase in overwhelming numbers. Pete Hegseth could have been describing America here. As of course, he's like, oh, the Iranians, they spent all their money. And he's like, give me more.
But it doesn't mean they won't still have some and try to hold people at issue, which is why we're fighting every single day to continue to compel. And you mentioned embassies and consulates. Unlike previous administrations, we are doubling and tripling down on ensuring that our people, regardless of their Department of War, Department of State, whatever they do, are secure in those facilities. And the best defense is a good offense. And so we're not afraid to go after and kill anybody, and we have a lot of them attempting to...
you bombed a lot of schools that were going after you.
In that same conference, he's like, $200 billion. Can I have $200 billion? We need
because it's fun. Remember, this war is fun.
News is also reported that Pete Hegseth says that one family of the service members that was taken out here urged him to not stop until the job was done. The father of one of those service members says that was never said. I mean, is it true? I don't know. Listen, the fact that the U.S. government is now asking the American taxpayer $200 billion for more war. I mean, look at these lines that people are dealing with. This is just to enter the airport, right? This is just a level of insanity. Congressman Lauren Boebert I think really hit the nail on the head here when it comes to the sentiment of what she's feeling from all of this.
I will not vote for a war supplemental. No, I am a no. I've already told leadership I am a no on any war supplementals. I am so tired of spending money elsewhere. I am tired of the industrial war complex getting all of our hard-earned tax dollars. I have folks in Colorado who can't afford to live.
Most people are having major financial difficulties. As of course, they're asking, why are we spending all of our time, resources, money, political capital, and will, and foreign
we
connections on
recycle
this?
just
Why are
to
we doing
pay our
this?
bills.
What's the reason? What's the objective? How does it help America? It doesn't. It does the exact opposite of that. It keeps us less safe. It doesn't secure the petrodollar. It doesn't secure our international relationships. It doesn't bond well with the viewpoint of how the world sees America, while, of course, we trample and destroy our own financial system that has been tremendously indebted because of these foreign war endeavors that predominantly benefit Luciferian death cult members. In my personal opinion. Anyway,
Yeah, the Epstein
lots of people spread
theory.
death, misery, and evil. I don't like to do that. I like to do the opposite of that. Just really quickly.
So, like everything else, more boots on the ground. So, if I didn't say it, Shalom, first and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, double honors, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teachers of truth and sincerity, and shout out to Yahakians out there in the four corners of the earth proclaiming this truth. Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, Barakatam. So, they can't figure out where to send their spending, right? But nonetheless, though, for the 5th time, Senate fails to end DHS shutdown. The debate in the Senate to end the Department of Homeland shutdown amounted to nothing on Friday, the 5th time talks have. The DHS shutdown has now lasted 35 days, and politicians from both sides agree on one thing. There's a long way from an agreement yet. So, like everything else, they are just not going to approve.
Tomorrow, the Senate will take a very simple procedural vote on beginning to reopen TSA, which Democrats are leading. Tomorrow, America will see the matter crystal
It's
clear.
Fox News.
Which senators
It's
want to
the
open
Democrats.
up TSA,
It's not the Republicans.
pay TSA workers, and
It's
end the
Fox
chaos at our
News.
airports,
And it's the
and
Democrats,
which senators
right?
are going to block TSA funding yet again. If you want to open up TSA, vote yes tomorrow.
Yep. They ain't got shit. But they tell other countries how to live, right? And they can't even balance a fucking budget. Shows you how pathetic it is, right? Them trying to be the hammer of the whole earth, and yet, now, like everything else, though, I don't know if he got the COVID shot or not, but, I remember him going into the hospital earlier this week, and then he died yesterday. American icon Chuck Norris dies at 86 following medical emergency, and it's a mystery. So, like everything else, though, they don't even know, they don't even know what the cause was. Alex Jones interviewed Chuck Norris many times over the years. Always powerful, always unforgettable. This clip from October 1st, 2008 was one of those true moments. And like everything else, I think he was kind of a conservative as far as his political views, but we'll play some
war
of it.
on corruption. Alex Jones on the GCN
And Alex
Radio
Jones has
Network.
been around for a while anyways. So here's an older interview. We'll play some of it, not all of it, obviously. Okay, so one of the books.
Well, we really do have a icon, not just a cult icon of martial arts and Hollywood films or top-rated TV shows, also an author, political activist, a real conservative. And I tell you, he's been getting even more hardcore against the things that threaten the constitutional republic. He's with us for only 20 minutes. First time I ever talked to him was just during the break. I was flattered to hear that he's heard the radio show and tuned in. And we have Chuck Norris with us for 20 minutes. The new book is out, and I have read much of it. I just got it a few days ago. Black Belt Patriotism, How to Reawaken America. Martial arts master, actor, and political activist. We're also live at PrisonPlanet.tv, streaming from the studio. There is the book for folks watching. I don't want to waste any time with any more introduction. He is one of the few people that doesn't need one, kind of like Jesse Ventura, the governor, on with us last hour, coming down to an event I'm putting on Willie Nelson, coming up later this month on the 26th. Chuck Norris, it is great to have you, sir.
Well, thanks, Alex. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
You know, so much has happened, so much has been unfolding lately. I wanted to get your take first on the bailout that's going on right now.
You know, I don't know if it's going to relieve the pressure on our citizens and our Americans. I'm all for it. You know, it's so complicated, Alex, you know, and unless you really delve into that to find out exactly what it's going to do, it's a very difficult situation to determine. And I just hope, if they do pass the bill, that it's not in vain. You know, that we're just not going to waste another $1 trillion for unnecessarily. It's just so, you know, I tell you, that's why I wrote this book. I really did a lot of research because I am so worried, like so many people in America are, about the future, about the direction our country's heading economically, and our national debt and illegal immigration and all these issues we're facing. And you know, and research and doing all the research on this book here, you know, and finding out that the founding fathers had a vision for America. And it was not corrupt.
So you get a general idea on what his viewpoints were, but nonetheless, though, it's mysterious. It doesn't sound like he would have been against Trump or against the war on Iran, just listening to some of this, you know, but nonetheless, though, he might have taken the shot, you know, so like everything else, so yeah, see, he didn't really look too bad for an older guy. I mean, it's just, it's one of those things, you know, you know, yeah, okay, so yeah, you can definitely tell you there he is with Bibi. So, nonetheless, though, you know, doesn't seem like he was an enemy of the state at all. So, he might have gotten the blood clots from the vaccine. That's probably what killed him. I don't think that they deliberately assassinated him. Again, you know, pulmonary embolism is quite the you know, reaction, and it can happen at any time. Anybody can have pulmonary embolism, especially if you alter your DNA, your mRNA, and that's what those vaccines did. You know, you used to not be able to even talk about that on YouTube, but they removed a lot of the restrictions, right? But you know. Well, they're going to bring in an economic crash leading to MOTB. That's what this war is doing. They got all the pieces in place. So, like everything else, though, they know that the dream is over. You know, the so-called American dream, you know, that's over. And they're waking up to smell the bullshit. So you're going to have, you know, Egyptian against Egyptian, as the scriptures say, right? You know, we don't even have to foreshadow that. We're watching it in real time.
This war is going to make America weaker, and it's going to cause the price for everything that you need to rise.
Major news as signs are pointing that the U.S. economy might be sitting on the edge of a cliff.
The American dream is dead. The America that we had is done. The America we knew is over.
Something big is shifting in America right now, and most people can feel it, even if they can't quite name it. The signs are everywhere, and the question isn't really if things are going to get harder. It's whether people are going to be ready when they do.
The America that we had is done. It's over. The idea of America is still alive. It never really came to its full potential. The America we knew is over. I want to be very clear, though. I love America. I absolutely love America.
Yeah,
I like the people.
But you're going down with the ship.
The people of America. This war is not going to end well.
They know it. They know it's their end.
I wish I didn't have bad news for you today, but things are spiraling really badly out of control. We have 3 of the wealthiest Arab nations that are now considering pulling out of the U.S. economy. And when I say that they are the foundation of our economy, that if they pull out their investments, it could crash our economy, that is an understatement.
Hi, it's Alan. Unfortunately, we're living through history again. This war is going to make America weaker, and it's going to cause the price for everything that you need to rise. The price of gasoline is already $4 a gallon where I live. There's a shortage of fertilizer.
It's a lot higher than that in California.
Of the global fertilizer supply flows through the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of global oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. As a result, we're going to pay more for everything in our lives, and the United States is going to be strategically weaker globally.
You guys are witnessing the collapse of the US dollar as we know it. This is the craziest time to be alive because I think we're going to see a time where the US dollar is literally going to be worth zero. Absolutely nothing. And I need to explain what I mean by that because a lot of people will misunderstand and a lot of people will say I'm crazy. But I think all the pieces are falling together for this to actually be true. We all know the Bretton Woods Agreement, where we essentially all agreed that the US dollar is going to be used to purchase oil. What that means is, no matter where you live, if you have oil and you sell that oil, it needs to be transacted in dollars. What that has created is it created dependency on the US dollar for every single country. Not only countries need to hold US dollars so they can buy oil, they also realize that the US dollar is probably the most stable currency out of all other currencies out there, because even if the value goes down, you still kind of need to use it, which sucks. But it has created a unique situation for US or for the United States, because the US has been able to just go into debt more and more and more, while other countries said, we don't like what you're doing, but we still need your currency. Now, we have seen countries that have retaliated against that and have created their own system, which is BRICS. BRICS has said that we are going to use our currencies to transact with oil. Hence why we have seen such a enmity between China, the US, Russia, the US, and then a few other countries, even though that situation is kind of tricky. Now, the reason why, and the reason why those countries have always been a pain in our butt, so to speak, is because they have openly been saying that they don't want to be part of it, which is a big problem. Because if countries start realizing that they don't have to transact in US dollars, the US dollar just becomes worthless and becomes just like any other currency.
People are worried. More than that, they're scared. And I honestly think that fear makes sense, because what's happening isn't just about prices or politics. It feels like the whole foundation is cracking. When we have the people that are holding it together, saying out loud that things are going the wrong way, that's worth paying attention to, because the road ahead doesn't look any smoother.
If you want to know what is going to happen to the U.S. financially, this is the answer. And it's not my answer.
This is music to our ears.
Leading investors, Ray Dalio. And I am recommending his book without hesitation. So Dalio spent decades studying how empires rise and collapse. Not theories, actual historical data across hundreds of years and dozens of civilizations. And the pattern he found, it is playing out right now in real time in the United States, right here. Debt at levels that have historically preceded a currency collapse. A reserve currency losing its grip. Domestic politics collapsing while rival powers consolidate. These are not predictions, these are conditions. Conditions that have ended every dominant world power in recorded history.
According to the Congressional Budget Office, the United States has been borrowing about $50 billion every single week for the past 5 months. Let that sink in. $50 billion per week. In just the first 5 months of fiscal year 2026, the federal deficit has already grown by another $1 trillion. $1 trillion in 5 months. And now the total national debt is approaching $39 trillion. And here's what should really piss you off. Just paying the interest on the debt cost taxpayers $433 billion in the same 5 months. Not the debt itself, just the interest. Experts say interest payments could hit $1 trillion a year soon, and $2 trillion annually within a decade. That is not sustainable, because the more money the government borrows, the more taxpayers have to pay just to service the debt, meaning future budgets could be dominated by one thing: paying interest on money we already spent.
Want to talk about a boomer move? The Troubled Asset and Relief Program. No, let's kick the can down the road.
Yeah, that's exactly what we call it.
Let's not
every time they try
any of the
to
underlying problems to
pass the budget,
to
right?
that situation.
Kick that can down the road.
Inject liquidity into the banks using taxpayer dollars. They had the opportunity to fix everything, but they just chose not to.
Major news as signs are pointing that the U.S. economy might be sitting on the edge of a cliff, with the New York Times reporting that Wall Street lenders like Blue Owl Capital and Blackstone are possibly facing defaults on loans because of lending to risky businesses or industries that are being impacted by AI. And this is showing up in the numbers, guys, as they are selling off loans for lower amounts to raise capital because their investors are calling to have their money pulled out. Guys, this is signaling a possible run on the banks, and it's got Wall Street rattled right now, and not enough people are talking about this. Trump's war in Iran has caused more instability and questions about the future of the economy, and has many people playing a guessing game now that they don't like to play, so investors are calling to pull their money, and loans are being sold off at lower rates to raise the capital. On the flip side of this is also showing that lending could start drying up, meaning no growth for businesses. This has caused a chain reaction amongst investors on Wall Street, where people are saying, once you hear people are getting out, you don't want to be the last one. So people are moving to get out and pull their money and put it in more secure investments. So this is major, major news for our economy.
It's very apparent that the U.S. economy is not doing well. Inflation has remained above 2%.
So
is likely
you're
to
hearing it everywhere.
Our labor market, in my opinion, is now not softening but trending down. Foreign central
And
banks
lots of
are continuing
businesses
on
have
buying
shut
gold,
down.
even after
Papa
an all-time high
John's,
of 5,600 an ounce.
Wendy's.
The way stagflation is being thrown around like a hot potato. Commodities are trading like meme coins. We have tariffs. Do we not have tariffs? And we're now seeing very early signs of AI replacing actual jobs, given our recent NFP was negative 92,000 jobs. Housing prices have remained inflated, and the under 35 crowd can still not afford a mortgage. Consumer debt is crushing young adults. Private equity firms have their own mosh pit of IOUs. And what's the cherry on top? You can now buy now, pay later on OF. How fucking down bad are we? I'm not saying all this to scare you. I'm just trying to present the reality of our economy.
$50 billion a week in borrowing. Markets rattled, companies pulling money out. These are more than numbers. They are clear signals that something is really wrong. And history has a pattern for what comes after signals like these. The AI spending wave was supposed to be the answer to all of it. But that bubble, it was never going to hold forever, was it?
So, like everything else, though, you see what's happened. It's a down spiral, and it's just still spiraling down. If the dollar starts sinking, it's going to be fast. There's another article. Last night's debate on Deflick's War and Markets brought together Bob Murphy in the Mises Institute and Bard College professor Randall Ray for a clash between Austrian and MMT worldviews moderated. Exploiting U.S. deficits, the Fed's policy pat, the geopolitical shock of the Iran war, what it means for stocks, a potential bond market snap to calls for another financial crisis. We covered a lot of ground, and here were some of the highlights. So, like everything else, though, you know, they're saying it. We'll play some of this.
If you were advising the government, if all of a sudden tomorrow the long end, had trouble clearing an auction and the bond term premium went up, 100, 200 basis points. Bob, why don't we start with you? What would you advise Trump if all of a sudden term premiums started blowing up?
Okay, so let me say on the preface of this that, yeah, this is an area where if you had 15 years ago told me this is what the fiscal position is going to be, do you think like there would be this massive premium at some point? I would say, oh yeah, that's surely when debt to GDP hits this amount or whatever. So I am surprised at how much leeway investors are giving the U.S. federal government. So okay. I will say that I'm surprised that they haven't put it more. Having said all that, though, I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening that used to be like, for example, in the 80s, I remember I was young at the time, but I was getting into all these policy debates and the idea that, if we don't reform entitlements at some point, they're going to be paying more to, retirees than workers are paying into the system. And this was this long, like, yeah, we better get our act together before that. Well, that's been the case for several years at this point. Now they're talking about when the so-called trust fund, is going to dry up. So there's a lot of things like that used to be inconceivable. I also think, like, the stuff going on with Russia and the measures that the U.S. government took, I think there's lots of countries around the world that are saying we need to reduce our exposure to the U.S. dollar, and they're just trying to figure out how do we do that. And I think the rise of stablecoins and stuff like that is going to make that a lot easier.
You've heard the term de-dollarization for a long time.
People are taking stable coins and not using, quote, real money. It's easy just to pull down
stable coin, you already know, is the
have it to be gold or a basket of currencies or whatever.
Central bank digital currency. It's just a different twist of a name. But stable coin's the same as central bank digital currency. It's just the U.S. version under Trump. Hegseth says munitions are for the U.S., not Ukraine. So even though Ukraine had lent their drones to help the U.S. to not have to use not tomahawks, but interceptors that they lent their drones, well, they're not getting any funding. Biden administration depleted the U.S. weapon stocks by sending them to Kiev, Pentagon chief claimed. The Pentagon is now prioritizing refilling its own weapon stocks instead of sending them to Ukraine. Hegseth, the fucking douche, said, blaming the Biden administration for any challenges the U.S. military had been facing lately. So, like everything else, though, well, we'll just see if they continue to help, right? Because the Patriot missiles, that's what the interceptions are, right? So, Ukraine leader Zelensky eagerly tried to get involved in the hostilities between the U.S. Israeli terrorists and Iran. He claimed that D.C., as well as multiple Gulf states, had sought Kiev's help in fending off Iranian retaliatory strikes and floated swamping Ukraine intercepted drones for U.S.-made anti-aircraft Patriot missiles. Zelensky's advances were ultimately snubbed by U.S. President Trump, who had said Washington has not sought Kiev's help in the Iran war. I guess there's no deal. Ukraine's still cut off. Why Israelis' defense and ICJ genocide case has disintegrated, because like everything else, they can get away with it. I mean, who really? The International Court of Justice, or the ICC, well, look at how long King Bibi has had charges, right? Tel Aviv boasts of a robust and independent legal system, but the recent dismissal of charges against soldiers shows how empty these words really are. Well, like everything else, they can do whatever they want. These are pedophiles in power. The Israeli state is the heart of it all. These Israelis, these Amalekites, are at the very top of it all. And it's like, well, no wonder why every leader in Babylon are just as perverse as Donald Trump. Last week, Israeli state suddenly dropped charges against 5 soldiers accused of the sexual abuse or rape of male Palestinian prisoner. Soldiers were filmed at the atrocity as the atrocity was committed. As for the victim, the Israeli newspaper Haaretz cited medical records showing that injuries include a ruptured bowel, a severe injury to his anus, lung damage, and broken ribs. So, like everything else, though, they are just not holding them guilty for that, even though there was evidence, right? And like everything else, well, you've heard the propaganda. You might have seen, especially if you've been on the social media, you might have seen some pro-Trump posts by people that say, oh, well, Iran's, been our enemy for 47 years and done all this shit to us, right? You've heard Trump tout that and just the propaganda. Well, that was a short little snippet. So here it is, though, the propaganda against Iran, because you've heard it for years, and that they've been at war with Iran for years, right? They're always demonized in every movement. I mean, they've wanted this war with Iran for years, and they finally got it. But they say the war started 47 years ago. Well, it's ever since, the Islamic Revolution formed, and they kicked out the puppet government. They've wanted Iran ever since then.
The level of propaganda when it comes to Iran, it's not like the Soviets, it's not like North Korea. It is at that level of deception. We are at that level of blatant abject lies. We are at the Orwellian, we have always been at war with Iran, we have always been at war with East Asia kind of thing, to the point that, like, I'm not even sure people realize what they're saying. I had a video yesterday, I didn't actually get to it, but it's a thing you'll hear a lot, that Iran has wanted to kill America and has been at war with America for 47 years.
Yep, you've heard it.
No, they haven't. That's just not true. Then I heard a guy, this is a video I was going to show you yesterday, he says Iran has been behind every terror attack in 47 years.
Yep, you've heard that.
Iran has been behind. In other words, because Iranian proxies exist, therefore every act of terror, specifically Islamic terror, in the last 47 years is all being blamed on Iran. That would mean 9/11 is being blamed on Iran. For some reason, we destroyed Afghanistan and Iraq, even though they didn't have anything to do with 9/11. The Israelis had to do with 9/11. The Saudi Arabians had to do with 9/11. But now we're teamed up with the Israelis and the Saudi Arabians to attack Iran because we're blaming them for 9/11. I mean, when you say every terror attack for the last 47 years has been blamed on Iran, that is Orwellian. That is insane. That is an insane claim to make. Because they're rewriting history.
Yep.
So while we went to war with Afghanistan and Iraq for 2 decades, I guess we were just mistaken. We were just wrong. That was just the wrong target. We should have been going after Iran the whole time. Or are they now going back and just saying all of the same excuses that we used to go to war with Iraq, actually the exact same excuses now apply to Iran? Not like similar. Not like, oh, they were the sponsor of terror and now Iran is. No, no. All the terror attacks like 9/11, the bombing of the trains in Barcelona and the UK, all of those terror attacks that we used to get us into war with Iraq, all of those same terror attacks, those are now being blamed on Iran. The exact same ones.
Yeah, because Al-Qaeda was supposedly working for Iraq. Remember that?
Truly is, and that's happening right now in real life. People are actually saying in total sincerity that Iran is responsible for all of the terror attacks in the last 47 years. Yeah, I used to read Orwell and think it was crazy. I thought, the first time I read 1984, I thought, there's no way people would be holding a protest and destroying their own signs that they made with their own hands, and they turn around and say, somebody sabotaged my sign. But like, that's where we are. That's where we are. We are in Orwell's Empire of Lies. And they're not even good at it. They're not even sophisticated at it. They're just lying with abandon at the moment because it seems like the most convenient way to get out of the conversation. And then they say the exact opposite to the next person that corners them. It's crazy.
And he's right. You know, these stories just don't add up. You know, and we already know that 9/11 was a false flag to start their war of terror. You know, it was called the War of Terror. You know, and they unleashed hell. And they even tried to say that Iraq had something to do with Al Qaeda, which, if you watch Syrian Girl, Al-CIA'd, you know, because that's what it is. The CIA trained these terrorists, the same terrorists that are in ISIS that destabilized Syria and destroyed it, the same terrorists that destroyed Libya, you know, and killed Muammar Gaddafi. You know, these same terrorists that the CIA trains and sponsors, you know, are the real terrorists. But if they can just blame it all on Iran, because Iran is bad because they won't bow down to the Israeli state, they oppose the Zionist entity, well, you know, they got to do something about it because, you know, it goes against Greater Israel. Qatar dethroned as LNG king as U.S. seizes his throne, reshaping the future of gas, you know, because he wants it all. He already took Venezuela. I mean, fuck, he's doing good, right? You know, so may as well. The geopolitical calculus underpinning global LNG supply through the early 2030s has shifted materially. Iranian drone strikes against Qatar LNG trains, delays to key expansion projects, and the indefinite closure of the Strait of Hormuz have created a compounding threat to Qatar's LNG position that goes well beyond a construction delay. It has been framed as a two-horse race for the global LNG market share. Now looks considerably more one-sided. The beneficiary is clear. U.S. Gulf Coast LNG. There you go. So they also launched this war to destroy Qatar. Which, of course, because Qatar and Iran actually shared part of that together. You see, Iran also is part of the world's oil supply. Well, it's all about taking the oil. That's what Iraq was about. That's what all the other countries were about. It's about stealing their oil, coveting the oil fields. Iran rejects ceasefire, insists on guarantees and reparations from the U.S. amid reported Diego Garcia strike. Iran's Foreign Minister Agashi said that his country is not seeking a ceasefire but a comprehensive end to the war, amid reports of a missile strike against Diego Garcia. So, like everything else, so, you know, and that's just it. You know, ceasefires, well, just means that they'll be attacked again later. They're trying to guarantee that they're not going to ever be attacked again. Can't blame them for that. Iran has rejected calls for a ceasefire to end the war that the U.S. and the Israeli state launched last month, insisting instead of a full, permanent, comprehensive end to the conflict, as hostilities appeared to be expanded beyond West Asia, with a reported Iranian attack against Diego Garcia, which is a UK base, shared UK base. Iranian Foreign Minister Agashi said in an interview with Japan's Kyodo News that Tehran does not accept a ceasefire, stressing that any resolution must include guarantees to prevent a repeat of what happened and compensation for the damage inflicted against Iran. You've heard him speak of this. Agashi also addressed concerns over the Strait of Hormuz, saying that the vital waterway has not been closed by Iran, but is restricted only to ships from countries attacking it. He warned, however, of unsafe conditions while offering conditional assurances we are ready to provide safe passage for ships as they contact us. And there has been ships going back and forth through that. It's only hurting the U.S. economy to keep this war going. And so here's some more smooching. You know, he's trying to work a deal while attacking them, right? You know, the U.S. may lift some oil sanctions against Iran as oil price climbs. So he's trying to do some smooching while blowing the shit out of them. I'm sure this is going to go well. As the war in West Asia escalates to attacks on energy infrastructure, D.C. is talking extensive measures to put downward pressure on oil prices. So like everything else, he was on Fox News. You know, about, oh, well, we just might end some of the sanctions. Really? Then you'll tariff the hell out of them.
We had
because that's what you do to allies.
A plan across the administration and at Treasury. We unsanctioned Russian oil. We knew that there were about 130 million barrels on the water, and we created supply that is beyond the Straits of Hormuz. So we anticipated this. We knew that there could be a temporary, and I want to emphasize temporary, choke point there, and there was 130 million barrels of floating storage. In the coming days, we may unsanction the Iranian oil that's on the water. It's about 140 million barrels, so depending on how you count it, that's 10 days to 2 weeks of supply that the Iranians had been pushing out. That would have all gone to China. In essence, we will be using the Iranian barrels against the Iranians to keep the price down for the next 10 or 14 days as we continue this campaign.
So you hear it though, Iran against Iran, that doesn't make sense, right? But he claims that lifting the sanctions against Iranian oil would actually hurt Tehran. Boy, if you listen to Fox News, man, you really are chasing your tail. You know, trying to figure it out. You just keep on trying to bite and grab your tail, and you're spinning around. Trump announces Iran war objectives very close to being met, considering winding down military operations. So, like everything else, though, he wants to get out of it, but, like, you know, as you know, he's also sending troops, so he's sending mixed messages. On Friday, Donald Trump announced that the U.S. is very close to completing its objectives in Operation Epstein Fury, and now considering winding down its military operation against Iran. Currently, U.S. warplanes and attack helicopters are striking Iranian targets in effort to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It appears D.C. is attempting to establish conditions that are safe enough for the strait to be handed over to the authority of Gulf states and that the nations that ship energy through it. So basically, he wants to take Iran out of the equation. Good luck with that. You believe anything this douche tells you? I don't think that he can actually be honest, to be, you know, because he doesn't know. He's a know-nothing. You know, the only thing he knows how to do is run his mouth. But he doesn't know shit about war. He doesn't know any of that. You got to remember, this guy is a businessman, and not a good one either. I think we won. Trump says as Iran refuses Hormuz talks. Houthis also threaten Red Sea Strait, you know, because that's another place where the Houthis said anybody supporting the Israeli state would be a target. CBS reporting heavy preparations for ground troops as Trump says no ceasefire for now. Trump calls NATO a paper tiger, says close to meeting our objectives off-ramp. IRGC contradicts Bibi, says missile production is ongoing, if of no concern even as IRGC spokesman Nalini is reportedly killed. You know, so just pretty much though, it doesn't look like it's going to be ending anytime soon. It doesn't even look like he's backing off of this. You know, he's thinking about taking the Strait of Hormuz from Iran. Well, you have to take out Iran in order to do that. Iran has not closed the Strait of Hormuz and imposed restrictions on vessels linked to the aggressors. Again, you know, this is just pretty much saying that, you know, hey, you know, anybody else is free to come in here as long as you contact the Iranian government and pay us in yuan. Do not pay us in that fucking phony U.S. dollar. Speaking in an interview with Japan's official Kyoto news agency on Friday, Agashi stated that Tehran is prepared to facilitate the passage of Japanese ships through the strategic waterway and that negotiations with Tokyo on the matter are underway. We have not closed the strait. It is open, the top Iranian diplomat stated. He also emphasized that Iran is not seeking a ceasefire, but a complete, comprehensive, and lasting end to the war. So, pretty much, though, you know, it's a no-brainer that this war is just costing everything. And it's already been hitting and taking the market. And here we go. Another ally, you know, refuses to support the war. Sri Lanka refused ground access to U.S. fighter jets. Could it be because you shot a frigate that was just there on training exercises? You know, you targeted an unarmed vessel, you know, over there, and they don't want to be involved in this because they have good relations with Iran? Sri Lanka refused to provide ground access to 2 U.S. fighter jets earlier this month. President Dzunka had told Parliament, D.C. asked for permission to land the warplanes on the island of March 4th and 8th. Dzunka said on Friday. They wanted to bring in 2 warplanes armed with 8 anti-ship missiles from a base in Dushabad to the Malala International Airport, and we said no, Sri Lanka president told Parliament. We maintain our neutrality despite many pressures. We won't give in. West Asia war poses challenges, but we'll do everything possible to remain neutral. So, like everything else, though, you know, they're running out of places because U.S. bases have been under attack immensely, and there's really not a lot of safe places. And the aircraft carriers are also getting hit and having to retreat. Iran has no oil on international waters. U.S. claim intended to lower prices. So basically they're saying that they shut down Iran's oil. That's what they claim anyways. Iran's oil industry dismissed comments by U.S. Treasury secretaries. These people don't even know what they're talking about. But they're going to give you the illusion, right? That Iran is weakened, etc. He said D.C. had temporarily eased sanctions to allow Tehran to sell crude it had stored on the water. In a statement responding to a psychological ploy, the ministry said Iran had no crude oil stored at sea and no excess volumes awaiting release to international markets. So they're just totally denying what they already said. Funny, huh? They flip-flop on everything. It's because they can't tell the truth. It's not in them to tell the truth, but it's looking very, very bad to continue this war. And Trump has no exit strategy. No exit light. No internight, man. He is just totally plunging into darkness. Iran says Natanz nuclear enrichment complex hit again in U.S.-Israeli attack. So, you know, they're trying to blow this shit up. Israeli state said its Natanz nuclear enrichment complex was targeted again in U.S.-Israeli terror attack on Saturday morning, according to a statement carried by the semi-official Tasnim news agency. It added that the attack violates international laws and commitments, including the Treaty of Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons and other nuclear safety regulations. Yeah, you know, firing at nuclear facilities is not a good idea. The organization said technical and specialized assessments were conducted by the country's nuclear safety system center to evaluate the possibility of a radioactive contamination at the site. According to the findings, no radioactive material leak was detected and there is no danger to residents living near the area, the statement said. So like everything else though, you know, just nothing more than terrorism. I mean, that's what the U.S. are, is the terrorists, right? But even more so, Dollar Vigilante gets into this some, and yeah, you're going to have a new COVID-style lockdowns, happening. But it's going to be based upon this war. Lockdowns are coming. We talked about there being another lockdown, either because the World Health Organization orchestrated a new type of COVID. I mean, you heard all about the variants, right? You never stopped hearing about the variants. I mean, oh, fuck, the fucking variants. The Mu and the fucking Delta and the fucking, everything to the Omega, right? Although they never did play off the Omega variant, but the Israeli state talked about it, right? Because that was a perfect test. So, well, we're starting to see everything turn, and you're going to see uproars very soon. Isaiah chapter 19 talks about this, because we already know who the fierce king and cruel Lord is, and it's talking about this time, today. Isaiah chapter 19, verse 2, So I will provoke the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they will fight, everyone against his brother and everyone against his neighbor, city against city and kingdom against kingdom, and, pretty much, though, you're either on the side of Trump, which basically means if you're against Trump, you're against the U.S., you're not an American, etc., all that shit's coming out. You know, because these, Trump supporters are even trying to say you're not even, you don't even deserve to be an American if you don't support Donald Trump. And this is going to be hilarious. The spirit of the Egyptians will become exhausted within them and emptied out, and I will confuse their strategy, so that they will consult their idols and the spirits of the dead and mediums and soothsayers, basically trying to find answers, but they won't. They won't be able to get answers because, the greatest soothsayers and mediums is the media itself. Verse 15, because you're seeing all these layoffs due to this war. There will be no work for Egypt, which head or tail, high palm branch or low bulrush may do. In that day the Egyptians will become like helpless women, and they will tremble and be frightened because of the waving of the hand of the Lord of hosts, which he is going to wave over them. Just nothing but darkness coming. He's going to destroy Egypt once and for all. In that day 5 cities of the land of Egypt will seek the language of the Hebrews of Canaan and swear allegiance to the Lord of hosts. One of them will be called the city of destruction. And like everything else though, well, we've been calling upon those names. Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. And we're speaking the language of Canaan. So here it is. And like everything else though, we know that, we don't have many days left. So, like everything else though, you're seeing the beginning of destruction coming to Esau Edom. The idols of Egypt will tremble at his presence, as the heart of the Egyptians will melt within them. That's talking about ultimate destruction, nuclear destruction, wiping them off the face of the map. That's what's coming to Babylon, and we're seeing the beginning of its downfall. The only thing they got to usher in is the MOTB, and you see that with a broken economy and all that, they can just bring in the stable coin, because already people are using stable coins, so you already see the mechanism. They're just going to mandate the stable coin. And he's got all that set into place. So, we're in for some times. We already are in some times. So hopefully this has been edifying. Like I said, I got one more here before I close this out. For that I want to say Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadosh, Wal Abal Babal. Brakatum, Jehovah Olek, Shalom. You're going to see lockdowns, you're going to see collapses as this video goes into. Here we are with Dollar Vigilante, who gets into these things.
Everybody knows. Actually, that's not true. Hardly anybody knows what's actually happening. Even yourself, you might not realize this yet, but I've realized it, that what's going on is actually the next COVID's lockdown, the 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and this one's going to be far, far, far worse. It's going to result in probably billions dead. I'll get into that. Massive lockdowns, massive shutdown, massive economic collapses, massive collapses of almost everything.
He's right.
Which is all the stuff I've been saying was coming, and it's now actually baked in the cake. I'll get into that in this video. You actually can't stop it now because of what's already been done. And it's still ongoing. With the shutdown of 20 million barrels per day of oil, natural gas offline, that's going to lead to a massive drop in fertilizer. Whatever fertilizer is left is going to go up massively in price. Most people won't be able to afford food. And that's just the beginning. There's a lot to talk about in this video. And like I said, most people actually don't already know. Actually, most people have no clue still. So you're kind of ahead of the crowd here if you're watching this video, because you're going to be aware of what's happening. This is basically like me talking about the COVIDs in the first few days after we heard about the COVIDs. And I said a lot of that stuff was going to happen. And I said it was all fake and why they're doing it. And look what happened after that. For a couple of years, it was insane. And this one's going to be far worse. So anyway, we should get right into it. I should just mention doing a lot of work here. My son's been out helping, doing tons of work.
Yeah, because he kind of lives off the grid, but on the grid.
We always have a front door. We're getting close. We might have like a pavement here at some point, which might be nice because all this dirt is a little too much. But anyway, I am getting ready. Like, this is why I'm here. This is why I have a house with a blue roof. This is why I grow all my own food. This is why I have my own water supply. why I have mostly my own power supply, and what I don't have, I'm rushing right now to get put in because of what's about to happen. This is going to be absolutely massive. But we should catch up on some of the news before I get into that. Benjamin Milkowski put out another AI video, and this one was really interesting. In this one, he was talking about how good and things like Jesus always lose to the evil people.
Also wrote The Lessons of History, very brief, 100-page book, in which he said...
It's a nice AI video.
...that, unfortunately and unhappily, Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan. Because if you are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough, evil will overcome good. Aggression will overcome moderation. So you have no choice. If you look at the world as it is today, you have to be blind not to see that the democracies led by the United States have to reassert their will to defend themselves and to oppose their enemies in time while there's still time, before the jarring gong of danger wakes them up. It wakes them up.
The only danger is the Israeli state.
The fact that people don't see that, the fact that a lot of the news media are harking on a lot of fake news, but also a lot of short-sightedness, and do not see the historic period and the historic struggle that we are engaged in now, doesn't obviate these truths.
Sounds interesting. You're just coming right out and saying it now, what they are. And I saw this video that someone put out, and, you know, I have my own views on Jesus that are a little different than most people's. But that's fine, right? We should all have our own views, look into our own things, see things from our own
well, that's not his name
perspective
anyways.
and stuff like that. But what they say Jesus said, I'm like in 100% agreement on it. And in fact, even this video, I'm the exact same way.
Every conqueror who ever lived believed what you believe right now. They are gone and I am still.
No, that was just his shirt coming out from underneath his suit. Well, you decide. Does this look natural to you?
One.
Yeah.
Removing the nuclear threat. Second, removing the ballistic missile threat.
No, to me that looks just like the pocket in the cafe, you know, where Netanyahu's all super tanned, even though it's wintertime in Israel right now. Doesn't really look like him, he's way thinner. But his pocket closes over his hand in that video, and now his shirt sleeve just totally unnaturally appears, just like the vanishing ring sort of a thing. It's so incredible. And notice too in that video, it looks like he's speaking to like the media, right? Like he's actually like talking like this, like there's a big room full of media people. But there wasn't. Netanyahu to take questions from foreign press tonight. It's a virtual press conference with foreign reporters, so no one was actually there. Netanyahu's press conference took place on March 19th. It was his second since the Israel-Iran war began, focused on updates about the conflict. His office and multiple outlets described it as a televised opening statement followed by a virtual Q&A specifically for foreign international media. No foreign or international journalists were physically present in the room with Netanyahu. Yeah, so he's acting like he's speaking to this room full of people. His shirt sleeve just magically appears. It's incredible. AI clone of Netanyahu vows to continue Iran war despite death of his mortal body. And that actually looks like that's the case. You know, even in the Epstein files, they talked about Joe Biden was dead and they had clones, and there was clearly, like, there were so many different Biden clones. We saw it over the years. I was like, well, that's the angry Biden clone. And then they had the confused Biden clone. They're totally different people. And definitely there was this NBA star Biden clone who was like a full foot taller than Joe Biden. And he was the president at the time, by the way, and so none of that was real. And now you have Netanyahu, who might not be alive, but they just keep it going with AI. Which is so bizarre, and actually I'm a little pissed off because I did put a bet on Polymarket that Netanyahu would be out by the end of this month, and it's a 20-to-1 bet. But it looks like they're just going to keep him alive with AI for who knows how long. That's just how this world is. Like, none of these people are really even real. Like, they don't even use their real names, they're actors. Some of them don't even exist. They're just AI or clones. And do I even really care if Netanyahu's alive or dead? No. I don't care. Whether he is or not doesn't change anything. But that's what gets people all whipped up. They're all whipped up into, is he alive or dead? I don't care. And
truth
not even
doesn't stop the war.
Like, this is all our own true man show, really. I did see one of Netanyahu's fans died recently, and that was Chuck Norris. And of course, there's been this meme of Chuck Norris over the years about, you know, how he's like invincible and all that kind of stuff. But he was like a massive fan of Netanyahu, which says a lot.
Good to see you, Prime Minister. Good to see you. Thank you. Listen, Israel is strong, but it's indestructible now.
You gotta meet my wife, Gina.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you for having us, Prime Minister.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
You too.
I think we can tell our security people to leave. We don't need them anymore.
Oh gosh, I've been looking forward to this.
Thanks for all the support.
Oh, believe me, you'll always have my support.
Yeah, so now Chuck Norris is dead, and I would suggest, you know how they have this cancel culture thing? And like Bill Burr had a great bit on this about how they're canceling dead people. Like, did you hear what Johnny Cash said in a 1971 Playboy interview? It's like, well, those are different times, and what, we're gonna like stop listening to his music now because of what he said isn't politically correct today? But what I would suggest is that we cancel anybody who supports Netanyahu or Israel, basically, whether alive or dead or a clone. Just if you find out someone's in favor of those people, just delete, just cancel, stop buying their products. That would actually be a decent cancel culture if we're going to do a cancel culture. Anyway, speaking of other things that are totally not real, and I couldn't believe this, I thought it had to be fake. Like almost everything I see now, I'm like, well, that can't be real. Like, there's been dozens of those. And this one too, when I first saw it, I was like, well, that has to be AI. But I'm pretty sure it's real. It was on CNN, and like, I don't know who this announcer guy is, but it's pretty unbelievable, like how he even just acts. And they revealed that MAGA, they did a poll, and MAGA, people who are maggots, support, out of all the maggots, not one person, out of all of them, is against Donald Trump and what he's doing.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you look at the polling data and there are numbers that just jump off the screen at you, and this is one of those. Because just take a look here. MAGA GOP view of Trump. Approve 100%. 100%. If you are a member of MAGA in the GOP, you approve of Donald John Trump. 0% say that they disapprove. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know you can't go higher than 100%. He is the 1972 Miami Dolphins. Now, there are some Republicans who disapprove of Donald John Trump, but they are not members of the Make America Great Again movement. The bottom line is this. If you are a member of MAGA, you approve of Donald Trump.
It's interesting, though, because there have been a couple prominent people who have sort of come out online, and they're very mad about this war with Iran because he promised no new wars. Is there any sign that people might be leaving MAGA relative to 2024?
Yeah, okay. So, you know, I've said it before, and, you know, the theme of this segment is Tucker Carlson be darned. And when we look at the numbers, I mean, I've heard some people say, oh, you know, when you look at those MAGA numbers, it doesn't account for those who might have left MAGA. But take a look here. Americans who identify as MAGA in November of 2024, it was 28% of Americans. Now it's basically the same. If anything, it's slightly higher at 30%. The bottom line is this. The MAGA base within the GOP is not shrinking. It's the same size. If anything, it is slightly larger than it was back in 2024 when, of course, Donald Trump won a second term.
Yeah, 100% of MAGAs. And if you've been online, you know that's completely not true. I've seen so many, like, I'd say 80% plus of the people who used to support Trump and call themselves maggots don't support him anymore. Like, as one example, Sean of SGT report. He fell for it originally.
Egyptian against Egyptian.
You have to give him kudos because he's basically said I got fooled. And that's totally
Even
true.
Alex Jones has.
So that's one person who used to be a maggot who isn't anymore. So it's not 100% of maggots. And like I said, I rarely see any actual maggots anymore. There's like some bots sort of stuff, like the Gunther Eagleman or whatever, and the cat turd. You know, everything's fake. It's all bots and Mossad agents and CIA agents. That's all X is. But even in that CNN interview, it was so interesting because even she said, well, I've actually seen people online. There's definitely some maggots who aren't supporting this. And that guy's answer was so polished politician talk, because he doesn't actually respond to it. He goes, no, actually, now there's even more maggots. It's like, yeah, but if you actually pay attention, most of these actual people who call themselves maggots do not support Trump anymore. But according to CNN, it's 100%. I'm surprised they didn't put this. 147%. Why not, if you're going to lie?
You know, these are horrendous people. These are the worst people, and going back to Hitler, right? Going back to Hitler, these are the worst people.
And you're not?
That's a long time ago. And there's been nothing close.
So he's saying like everyone in Iran's evil, which is just stupid. There's no place on earth where every single person is evil, not even Israel. There's probably some decent people in Israel. Not a lot, but not many.
Right.
Not all. Not all. When you talk about millions of people, they're not all. Like, a lot of them might be under heavy mind control, and that's, you know, horrible, especially the things they do because of it. But I don't even think all Israelis, or definitely not all Jewish people, are evil. But Donald Trump thinks everyone in Iran's evil. And it's pretty amazing, because if you look at just the country itself, it hasn't actually aggressively attacked another country in Hundreds and hundreds of years. You have to go back, I think, to the 1700s, and there was a little dust up with Afghanistan or Iraq or something. But other than that, and up until this last month, but even that's basically in self-defense, right? So they didn't start this at all. Like, no one could, well, unless you're Israeli or Mossad or Abbas or under mind control, would you say Iran started all of this stuff? So they really haven't attacked offensively another country in hundreds of years. Now, I won't go back hundreds of years. Here's just the amount of countries the U.S. has bombed since 1945. Japan, they actually blew up two entire cities full of just regular people eating sushi. Germany, they lit them alive in a river and actually had a concentration camp where they killed like 1 million people and starved them to death. Then you have all the Asia stuff, the Korean stuff, the Vietnam stuff, where they're just napalming little kids for no reason whatsoever. Just look at all these countries. And so that's the country that Trump's saying is good, and Iran, who's never done any of that, ever, nothing, are so evil. It's incredible. It's incredible just to watch all this stuff. It's interesting, too, that we're just now entering into the season of sacrifice, which I've talked about almost every year for the last few years, and there's almost always something pretty big that happens at this time of the year. I saw this guy, and he kind of like really goes over a lot of things that are relevant about this particular season of sacrifice.
Sacrifice season is upon us, starting today and running through to May 1st. This is when the secret society, dark occultists that run the world love to conduct their false flag mass trauma events. Everything from the Boston bombings to the sinking of the Titanic to Port Arthur. And as you guys know, I predicted that World War III would kick off this year, likely on February 28th, because of my understanding of how these secret society, dark occultist calendars work and the prophecies, the script that they are following to bring about World War III, which was all written by Freemason and Kabbalist Albert Pike back in 1871, where they're going to weaponize political Zionism, which has infiltrated and blackmailed the West, against Islam for mutual destruction to bring about their Antichrist. This is the crazy stuff these people believe in. So in the Middle East, the US are running out of these interceptor missiles. Maybe they've got a week's worth left, but they require rare earth metals and years to build, so you can't just replenish those stockpiles. So this is going to leave the US, Israel, and its allies unprotected and desperate, while Trump is saying things like we could destroy Iran in an hour if we wanted to. You know, what craziness have they got planned? And you've got Joe Kent, the director of counterterrorism, resigning and openly saying that Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it's clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful lobby. So Netanyahu's been lying about Iran being weeks away from nukes for 40 years. He lied about weapons of mass destruction, 9/11, the war in Iraq. Mossad's motto is literally, by way of deception, we'll wage war. So, you know, these people are evil psychopaths that lie. So is there another false flag coming? I've spoken about the Samsung option where they'll just nuke everyone if they think they're going to lose. So we've got these fuel price spikes and shortages, the UK and everywhere talking about rationing, Sri Lanka talking about giving people days off, and nowhere worse than Australia, which is a testbed for the New World Order, right, where we've got a couple of weeks worth and they're already tapping into these reserves, and we're hearing talk of lockdown type scenarios, COVID 2.0, right? So we've got blackouts in Cuba, but this isn't just a transport issue. This is going to be power, food shortages, and think about what this would mean for the West that continues to be flooded with a record number of immigrants in a cost of living crisis. Now, this is all a great distraction from the Epstein files, UFO disclosure, which the government are talking about. The UK ran meningitis pandemic exercises last year. Now they're talking about an outbreak. So we've got all these catalysts. I don't know what lever they're going to pull for this sacrifice season, but be prepared, stay safe. You know, hopefully people wake up, unite, and rise up together against all this tyranny. But let me know your thoughts.
So there you have it. Shalom.